It's good day to brew, baby. What is up, YouTube? It's your boy, Millsy. We've got the hometown commander, and we are back for another episode of Millsy Brews, the show where I and Andrew, for this episode, brew a version 1.0 deck list of the commander in front of us on our quest to outbrew your favorite Magic channel. Today, we have another deck list submitted by Andrew. Andrew couldn't help but brew with me for this set, so I wanted to give him a chance to get any deck list he wanted onto the channel. And one of the next ones he was excited about getting up on the channel was Zimone and Dina. So let's talk about it. Black, green, blue for a 3/4. Great stats. Human Dryad. Review your second card each turn. Target opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. So we get our choice there of the life loss and the gain. And then tap, sacrifice another creature, draw a card. You may put a land card from your hand on the battlefield. If you control 8 or more lands, repeat this process once. Okay, so Zimone and Dina is definitely a commander that has 2 ways we can take this deck. The first is to focus on the first ability, try to draw cards on everyone's turn and pump people down that way. But I think most people are going to take the second one, doing a landfall style strategy that requires us to sacrifice and draw cards. So this is kind of interesting. Of course, the second ability plays into the first one, just like Dina and Zimone. We see each of them represented here. Dina in the sacrificing and the life gain, and then Zimone in putting cards from your hand onto the battlefield. So Andrew's intention here was just to use the second ability as much as we can, get those lands down, pay the payoffs, but also pay off some of the card draw when we have it to gain some value. Let's start on the mana base. Pretty classic mana base. I mean, I think one of Andrew's true strengths is his ability to brew well at a budget. He's kind of the opposite of me. He likes to brew really well, and I think he tends to do a very good job at brewing good, efficient decks at his budget, and this one is killer as well. The mana base looks pretty solid. Going to be a little bit slower than some of your fancier mana bases, but I think it has anything you might need to suffice that. We're playing the tri-lands we can. The temples are great to help us get through since we're doing so much drawing. Right? Let's see what's on top and whether we want to draw it. I love the Capenna fetch lands there. Those are going to help us with the land drops, of course, for all the landfall type abilities in our deck. Getting up into the enchantments, this is where we're going to start seeing this landfall strategy mixed with this card draw. Zendikar Wheel, a very common landfall card, getting us 2/2 elemental anytime a land comes in under our control. This is great because it's going to happen for our land drop for turn and when we use Zimone and Dina's ability. Thought Reflection, whenever we draw a card, we draw 2 cards instead. This is going to help us get through our deck, get the things that we need, and get them going. We're playing a couple of the retreat enchantments from Zendikar. Retreat to Agra. Whenever a land in a battlefield, we choose one, either get +1/+1/0 and death touch for a creature, or each opponent loses life and you gain a life. That second ability is definitely the better part of Retreat to Agra, helping us kind of prick our opponents out of the game by dropping them by life. And then Retreat to Coralhelm, lots of fun things that we can do with this. Obviously, I think with Retreat to Coralhelm, we care a lot about the first ability, which is you may tap or untap target creature or scry 1. Coralhelm is going to allow us to go infinite for as many lands as we have in our deck on the first ability in Zimone and Dina. So hopefully we have the things that are going to allow us to end the game that way, or push ourselves towards ending the game that way. Phyrexian Arena for the draw. This will also trigger Zimone and Dina as well on our turn, right? Because we're going to draw a card, and then we'll draw that second card, a real card for a turn, and that'll go off. Mulder Divine Reclamation, whenever creature dies, you gain a life and draw cards. So we do have the option here to start playing towards the Aristocrats payoffs as well, if we want to go towards that big, long combo. I think Andrew's done a pretty good job at trying to stay pretty overall. You have to remember that in a deck like this, you're not going to know exactly how much of each of these dials you need to turn up and down until you test the deck. And I think what Andrew did a good job was trying to keep all the dials pretty mid until he figures out, or he gets more experience with the deck to know what's doing well and what it's not. And I can definitely see some cards coming out to kind of turn up the dials elsewhere. But I like that he's keeping it pretty across the board so that if one part of the deck fails, you still have others to come by and pick it up. Druid class, gaining you a life whenever a land enters battlefield on the first one. Second level allows you to play more lands, and then when it becomes level 3, you basically just turn a land into a big XX, or X is the number of lands you control. I like Druid class, especially because it will just give you some incremental life gain as you play those lands. Death Reap Ritual, beginning of each end step. If your creature died this turn, you can draw a card. Again, another way to draw cards. another way to get moving through your deck, and then Awakening Zone and making some tokens. And this is a great way to make some tokens so that we can sacrifice them to Zimone and Dina for her ability. Swifty Boots to put on Zimone and Zenith, so we can use it right away. Wayfarer's Ball for a little bit of ramp. And then 1,000-Year Elixir when you activate abilities of creatures you control, so those creatures have haste. So this is great because Zimone and Dina can do it the turn that it comes down, and then the Elixir will untap them so that they can use their ability again. So you can already see we're trying to get ourselves into this reusing the ability strategy as opposed to only using it once per turn. And then the fun part there is maybe we can use it on everyone's turn to take advantage of that first ability to knock people down at life. And there's plenty of ways we can do this. Assassin's Trophy with some removal, Corrupted Conviction, allowing a set creature to draw some cards, get through our deck, get some cards, draw counterspell for a little bit of interaction. Dramatic Reversal to untap all non-land permanents we control. This is pretty great because this can untap Zimone and Dina, but this also can just untap a lot of other things that you may have access to that you want to use. Growth Spiral, pretty classic landfall instant at this point, drawing you a card and putting a land from your hand on the battlefield. Harrow for some land ramp by sacrificing a land to get 2 basics. Heroic Intervention for some protection. Negate for some more interaction. Occult Epiphany, X and a blue, draw X cards, then discard X cards. Create a 1/1 spike spirit creature token with flying for each card type among cards discarded this way. This is a great way to draw some cards, get some spirits on the battlefield so that we can use Zimone and Dina's ability, and the draw is going to help us get more lands in our hand to put down with the ability. So that makes a ton of sense. Opt for some early game draw or some just seeing what's on the top. Putrefy for some removal, Rolling Regrowth, same as the hero for some ramp, Snakeskin Veil for some protection, and then Turnabout, 2 and double blue, choose artifact, creature, or land, tap all untapped permanents of the chosen type target player controls, or untap all tapped permanents of that type that player controls. So this is pretty great because you can tap down all your opponent's creatures. You can untap all of your artifacts or creatures. It's a pretty solid card. I like it. I think it fits the idea really well. You could go deep, tapping a bunch of your creatures, and then just untap them all. So I like it. It's a pretty good idea. Getting into the sorceries, still we see a lot of ramp, cultivate, grow from the ashes, search for tomorrow, verdant mastery, nature's law, rampant growth. At the end of the day, we still need to ramp. We still need to get the party going. In Garrick's Wake, destroy all creatures you don't own and all planeswalkers you don't control. Great board wipe. One-sided board wipes are always the best because they hurt your opponents more than they hurt us. And this is going to be really helpful because most of these landfall cards make tokens. They're going to give us a big board. So when Garrick's Wake is going to kind of clear the way for us, ponder to look at the top, get a teeny bit of draw. And then a River's Rebuke, a card that I love. Probably a higher budget deck would probably play Cyclonic Rift here over the River's Rebuke. But I like the River's Rebuke because you can hit a specific player if a specific player is the problem, but you don't want to hurt the rest of the table, or you just want to make sure that one person really gets their things brought back to their hand. River's Rebuke is going to return all non-land permanents to their hand, get them out of the way. But what this also could do is just clear some blockers out of the way for you so you can use all of our tokens to get in. Well, just like any good landfall deck, we have a ton of creatures in the deck, and especially a lot of creatures that care about lands. I'm gonna stop it right here, and I want to do a better job of saying this so that people know that it's here. The deck list is down in the description. If you want to take a look, go ahead and do that. I'm gonna go through every creature in the deck specifically, and we're gonna talk about it in the deck. If you're not interested in hearing me go through all the creatures in the deck, deck list is down in the description. Please take a look at it. Let me know what you think. But if you want to, let's go through all the creatures in the deck. AC, Tyrant of Gyre Straits. Whenever you play, you can play an additional land of all your turns, and whenever a land enters the battlefield, you can draw a card. This is great because when we're putting down lands with Zimone and Dina, we do have a chance to then hopefully refill our hand enough to get another land to keep going on the process. Avenger of Zendikar, making all those plant tokens get buffed for the number of lands that are coming in. This is great because this is another finisher for us to potentially get a bunch of those plants down and take a turn where we put a couple lands down by tapping and untapping Zimone with different abilities, and just potentially make those plants huge. And they're able to end the game that way. Beledros is a great choice in here, getting us a pest on everyone's turn. It's not too expensive because we're going to have a ton of mana anyway. But then for 10 life, we can just untap all lands. We can go big if we need to and get some things down. Chakram Retriever, 4 and a blue, partner with Chakram Slinger, which doesn't look like it's in the deck. Whenever you cast a spell during your turn, untap target creature. Well, here we go. So this is a card that's going to just untap Zimone and Dina. So you can see we're just trying to do that. There are, of course, other cards in our deck that tap to do things, but I think Zimone and Dina is the one we want the most. Chasm Skulker, where we draw a card, we put a counter on it. When it dies, we had X1/1 squids with Island Walk, where X is the number of counters on it. Well, here we go. draw a bunch of cards, put a bunch of counters on it. We can either sack it to Zimone and Dina for its effect and then get the 1/1s, or when it dies, we just get the 1/1s, and then the 1/1s are going to become hard to deal with as well. So I like it. This is we're getting a dual threat out of something we want for the deck already. We're getting a beater if we need it, or we can sacrifice to get a bunch of tokens and go wide. Hullbreaker Horror, of course, not a card I'm going to turn down in a deck like this. Being able to bounce things or bounce spells as they're on the stack is pretty cool. And Hullbreaker Horror is just a great body on its own. It's a great card, and I love it. Joriel, Monvoli Recluse. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, create a 2/2. Well, this is great. This is what we're already trying to do anyway. And if we can untap Zimone, of course, we may want to just tap Zimone on someone else, on everyone else's turn as well. So this is going to help us make hats. And then for 6 mana, we can have all creatures turn into X's, where X is the number of cards in their hand. Well, that's not going to be very hard. Zimone and Dina is just drawing us a ton of cards. So this is another finisher, a way for us to turn all these little tokens that we're making from our Scooty, from our Avengers Zendikar, from Beldros into these massive creatures that are going to help us end the game. Kuro's Followers to untap another target permanent. I like it. Can untap Zimone and Dina, can untap other things. Maluka the Cloud Mirror, 1, return target lands you control to its owner's hand, create a token. Well, this is great with Zimone, right? Because if we run out of lands in our hand and we have this, we could just, if they say we have a basic land, tap the basic land, use Maluka's ability, and return it back to our hand, create the 1/1, play it back down with Zimone and Dina. And so you could see we really only need one land with these two cards to kind of keep going through this and keep getting the value. Meowtic Slime. When it dies, you make 2 ooze creature tokens. They have one. This creature dies, create 2 ooze creature tokens. That's pretty great because that's just going to allow us to have more creatures. So we sack this, we get 2 creatures, sack those 2, and get 2 more. So we have more and more creatures for these Zimone and Dina triggers. Nadir Kraken seems like a great choice, mostly because you're going to make this Nadir Kraken bigger while making the 1/1 tentacle tokens that you can just sacrifice to Zimone and Dina. So I like this. You're getting a big body and reliable tokens that you can use to sacrifice for her ability. You got to pay 1 each time, but I don't think we mind that for especially as how many we can make. Ogre Slumlord, whenever a non-token creature dies, you may create a 1/1 black rat creature token. Rats you control have Death Touch. Well, here we go. We sacrifice a non-rat token, get a rat, and now we're washing all of our tokens through this, getting more of those triggers for Zimone and Dina. Outland Liberator can sack to destroy an artifact or enchantment, and same thing on the backside, but when it attacks, we destroy our artifact or enchantment opponent controls. I like this. It's 2 things. It's a body. You can sacrifice to Zimone and Dina, or you can just use it to destroy one of your opponent's permanents. Quirion Ranger, return a forest you control to its owner's hand, untap target creature, act this ability only once per turn. That's fine. We can do this every turn, and every turn means everyone's turn, not just our turn. Put a force back to our hand, untap Zimone and Dina, put the force back down. So I like this. This is again a great way to untap our commander, untap other things that we have. I'm paging Bailoffs, making those 4/4 beasts. I see those 4/4 beasts as more of a way to help us in the game rather than sacrifice them to Zimone and Dina, but it is something you could do. Reclamation Sage, when it comes in, destroy target artifact or enchantment. So again, more removal here. And of course, removal on creatures is on ETBs, a little bit harder to deal with than spells or something like that. So I like that. We see Steve, Tribelder, sacking to get us a base land, put it in tapped. I like it. We still need some of that ramp, and Steve is perfect for that. A perfect classic example. Scrib Ranger, flying, protection from blue, and it has flash. Return a force you control to its owner's hand, untap target creature, activate this ability once per turn. All right, so we see this again. We see this ability again, being able to untap Zimone or Zimone and Dina, or regular Zimone if we have it down and we want to use it as well, since we have it in the deck. But I like it. Just ways to untap our commander, get more value. Scooty, one of the best token producers in Landfall. Just make it lots of copies of itself, and the more copies of it you have, the more you get. Once you get to 6 or more lands, you're just going to end up exponentially doubling the amount of tokens you have, and that makes great sack fodder for Zimone and Dina, or for our kind of go wide plan here. Spore Mound, remember land enters the battlefield, we get a Sapperling. Well, that's great. This is already what we talked about. Same thing with Scootsworm. Get a bunch of tokens. The only bad part about Spore Mound is I think Scooty's the perfect example of this, because the more Scooties you have, the more that amount always doubles once you hit 6 lands. Whereas things like Spore Mount and Bayless only get you 1, but it's just about taking advantage of kind of incrementally getting them over time. I think Spore Mound's great because that 1/1's something we want to sacrifice, whereas the Beast from Rampaging Bayless is probably something we want to attack with. Springville Druid can ramp when it comes in. Tadiova seems like a great payoff for the deck, allowing us to draw cards and gain life when we play lands. This is great. It's going to help us get through our deck and get to the really important things that are going to help us in the game. Tyler's Provisioners giving us forests or sorry, food or treasures for when we put lands down. This with our commander can help us net some mana for a future turn, give us those foods so we can gain some life back. I like a card like Tyler's Provisioner in here because it's just going to already help us in the plan that we're trying to go for. And then Zimone, Quadrix Prodigy, 1/2 of our commander. 1 in a tap, put a land from your hand in the battlefield tapped. 4 in a tap, draw a card. If you control 8 or more lands, draw 2 cards instead. I can see why we didn't include the original Dina because we're not doing as much into the aristocrats. But if Andrew had just spun slightly more into the aristocrats with Bastion of Remembrance or things like that, I think we could have easily included the original Dina and probably gone for a kind of aristocrat sub strategy and kind of probably held some damage as well. I think. In all reality, it probably could have just added a little bit more that way and probably would have just helped us ping out our opponents a little bit more. But hey, I think that's the point of deck building is for us to iterate, to get better, and to test. And I imagine this deck is going to get a lot better once he starts testing it, once he starts growing with it and figuring out how it works and makes those changes to make it better. This is a deck that seems kind of scary to play against because as soon as that engine gets started, who knows what's going to come of it. But let me guys know what you think of Zimone and Dina down in the comment section. The deck list is down in the description. If you're interested, like the video if you like it, subscribe if you want to join us on our quest to outbrew your favorite Magic channel, and I will catch you next time. See ya.